If one spouse has contempt for the other, that's pretty much the end of the marriage, either de facto or de jure, in fact or by law, or both. Okay, but what's the greatest threat to a marriage that does not necessarily lead to divorce, but certainly leads to a defective marriage? It's related. It's not entirely the same as contempt. It's a step below and far more common. So are you ready? Taking your spouse for granted. That's a real danger, and it just happens. It can happen over time. Familiarity breeds contempt, though I'm not going to use the C word, contempt, because that's the obvious marriage killer. What does taking for granted mean? When you fell in love, presumably you fell in love with the person you married to, I'll bet you felt you were lucky to get them as a spouse, as a husband or a wife. Is that fair to say? If you don't think you're lucky to have gotten this person, I don't think you should marry them. I mean, there are cultures, and most of history, people did not even pursue being lucky to find somebody. They just, it was arranged by parents, by society, and people live that way, and some marriages, I have no doubt, worked out. But in our time, wherein one chooses whom to marry for oneself, then most people feel lucky to have gotten the person, right? If I'd ask anybody at their wedding, hey, are you lucky to have her? Are you lucky to have him? 99% would say yes. Maybe 90%, maybe 10% don't feel it and have misgivings about getting married, which I've covered as well. How many people walk down the aisle not sure, or with regrets, or with fears? Okay, so putting them aside, most people think that they are lucky to have found the person and that the person is now married to them. The trick in marriage, and there are a lot of tricks, so to speak, is to maintain that sense of I am lucky to have her, I am lucky to have him. One way to do it is to sort of say it to yourself, and ideally to the other, regularly. And if you catch yourself not saying it, or saying it much less than you did at the beginning, that's a danger sign for your marriage. And it feeds on itself, because if you stop thinking that and start taking the person for granted, they'll just be there. There's nothing I need to do. That's a bad sign. That's the other part of taking the person for granted. Is the first part was thinking you're lucky. The second part is if you take something for granted, then you don't work to maintain it, correct? It's very simple. You take it for granted. Listen, by the way, this applies to friendship too. If you take friends for granted and don't work to maintain the friendship, then that too will ultimately die. You can't take friends for granted. No matter how much I ignore them or whatever it might be. You have to feel lucky to have the friends you have. I'll ask, yeah, I have a man on the street. Sir, do you feel lucky to have the friends you have? Lucky doesn't even cover it. That's very touching. That is very touching. I'm not kidding. Because you don't usually get emotional statements from the living martyr. I feel that way, and he knows I feel that way. By the way, you take your health for granted, you won't maintain that. Taking for granted anything is a serious danger. 1-8-PRAGER 776-877-243 777. Taking anything for granted means that you don't work at it. That you're not, and not only that, it also means that you don't really think it's special. They're all tied into one another. Feeling lucky. Every day I'm healthy, I think I'm lucky. I do. Because luck is a huge factor. Obviously, I take care of myself, but luck is a huge factor. I don't know if there's anything I could do to prevent pancreatic cancer or ALS or other things. And I know people, a dear friend of mine, a beautiful human being, just died of ALS. I adored this man. He and his spectacular wife would come on cruises with me, even with his ALS, which was kept under control remarkably well for quite some time. And, he spoke. He couldn't move around, but he spoke completely coherently. He was a joy. He wanted to live life to its fullest. I wonder if he was booked on the cruise that was canceled because of the lockdowns. All right, 1-8-PRAGER 776-877-243 777.